Hey friends, what's up? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Chav Test, Daf 29 of Yevamos. Friends, we're going to talk about Yibum and different situations when you have three brothers who are married to two sisters. So it's pretty exciting stuff. We're going to start in Daf Chav Chesamud Beis at the Mishnah, about 10 lines from the bottom. Shlosha Achin, so you have three brothers, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven and Shimon are married to Sarah and Rivka. Sarah and Rivka are sisters. O Isha Ovita, or alternatively, Sarah and Rivka are mother and daughter. O Isha Ovas Bita, O Isha Ovas Beno, or maybe Sarah and Rivka is basically granddaughter. But basically, two people that you would not be able to be married to at the same time. Now, then of course, Reuven and Shimon die, and now you got Levi. Hi. And then so you have Levi, and he's like, hello, what am I supposed to be doing? So, Givaldik, so you have, let's just stick to the easiest of them, which is the two sisters, because that's one that we've been sort of dealing with until now. So as we know, so you do chalitza. You don't do yibum, you do chalitza. Reb Shimon poter. Reb Shimon, the Gemara is going to explain why, but Reb Shimon, Taka says potter. You have to do nothing. Right? So you have Reuven and Shimon are married to Sarah and Rivka. Sarah and Rivka, let's say sisters. Reuven and Shimon die. Now Levi has a Yibum situation with Sarah and Rivka. So says Reb Shimon, you don't even need chalitza. It's pashit erva. And you don't need anything. If one of them, however, was an Isser Erva, right? So for example, if Sarah was Levi's mother-in-law, so then he could do Yibum with Rivka, because in that case, Sarah is kind of out of the question, so therefore Rivka he could do Yibum with. Isser Mitzvah or Isser Kedusha Cholzus for Misyabnis. Now if Sarah is related to Levi as an Isser Mitzvah, for example, maybe Shnias Larais or something like that, so then they both do Chalitza. Says the Gemara Tani, we learn in the Bryce, Reb Shimon poter b'shtein min ha-chalitza min ha-yibum. Reb Shimon says that Sarah and Rivka are both poter from Chalitza, from Yibum, from everything. Shenemar, as the Pasuk says, Vishalachos l'sikach litzor, that do not, right? It says by the erva, it says by the erva of your sister, it says that don't marry a woman and her sister litzror. So what do we learn out from litzror? So b'shashanaisu tzaris zolazo, that when they become tzaris, lo ye'elecha likuchen afilu b'achas mehen, that when you have sisters who are tzaris, so then you have, both of them are usher to you. And therefore, Reb Shimon understands that when Reuven and Shimon die, and now Levi has a Yibum situation with Sarah and Rivka, who are sisters, or mother and daughter, or granddaughter, whatever it might be, but they're arayas, so then it's not just like the Rabbanan were saying that, well, Levi has a Zika with both of them, and if he marries one, then he's marrying the sister of a Zika. This isn't just a Zika, this is Pashut Erva, friends. This is Pashut Erva. And therefore, Reb Shimon says that there's no Chalitza, no nothing, you don't have to do anything. Okay, what do you want me to tell you? So the Mishnah had said, if let's say Sarah was Levi's mother-in-law, so then he can do Yibum with Rivka. So, don't we already know this situation? That when Sarah and Rivka have to do Yibum with Levi, and Sarah is the mother-in-law, so then he can do Yibum with Rivka. What's the Chiddush over here? We know this already. Itztrich. So the Reb Shimon Itztrich, we talk needed for Reb Shimon, because Haggadai Chamina, I may have thought to say, Reb Shimon. Since Reb Shimon says, Shtei Achayos, L'chotzes v'lo misyabnis, since Reb Shimon says that the situation of Sarah and Rivka having to do Yibum with Levi, when they're sisters, it's not just an issue of Zika derabanan, it's take a Isser Erva. So I may have thought, Ligzum Mishum Bezachayos Da'am, I may have thought that since it's an Isser Erva, I may have thought that even though, yes, Sarah is the mother-in-law of Levi and she's out of the picture, but nonetheless, nonetheless, we should say that still Rivka would not be permitted out of concern, out of a gezerah, for the situation when you actually have two sisters, which is in Isser Erva. So meaning, even though in general, yes, we say that if Sarah was sort of an erva with Levi, so then Levi would be permitted to Rivka. That's what we've been saying all along. But I might think that since according to Reb Shimon, we're talking about Isser Erva over here, right, between Sarah and Rivka, not just Zikas. So therefore I may have thought to say, well, if you let him do Yibum with Rivka, since Sarah is his mother-in-law, so then you might also end up doing Yibum in a situation where they're actually sisters and like nobody's a mother-in-law or anything, and in that case it would be in Isser Erva, and that would be a problem. So I may have thought to make a Gezerah, so Kamashman that we don't make a Gezerah, and if Sarah is Levi's mother-in-law, so then he could do Yibum with Rivka. Continue the Mishnah, Isser Mitzvah, right, that when Sarah is related to Levi as an Isser Mitzvah rather than an Isser Erva, so in that case Levi does Yibum with Levi does Chalitza with both Sarah and Rivka. So the question is, why? 1 second. Didn't Reb Shimon say that when it comes to Sarah and Rivka, who are sisters, then Levi doesn't need to do anything because it's an erva, and therefore, if it's an erva, so then, right, so he doesn't have to do anything. Now, Yibum not Chalitza, and this Isser Mitzvah is only Mid'Rabbanan. So, Mid'Oraisa, Sarah and Rivka are ervas, and therefore, Memele, you shouldn't have to do anything. Why are we saying that you do Chalitza? So, Gzer Mishum Isser Mitzvah De'ama. Well, because we are concerned that if you just say that you don't have to do anything at all, somebody who sees this might think, oh, well, Sarah is like an Isser Mitzvah with Levi, a Shnius Larayos with Levi, and we see that he's not doing anything at all. It must be that Isser Mitzvah is actually considered like an erva. So then the Gemara says, wait, for 1 second, that makes sense for her, right? Meaning, the logic being that, well, if I see that Sarah is a Shnius Larayos with Levi, and she's not doing anything, it must be that Shnius Larayos are actually treated like Arayos themselves, and therefore you don't have to do anything, not even not Chalitza. So the Gemara says, okay, so that makes sense for Sarah. So I understand why Sarah should have to do Chalitza, so that you shouldn't get the wrong idea and think that Shnius Larayos are treated like Erva. But what about Rivka? Rivka is just simply a sister, which according to Shimon is an Isser Erva. So why should she have to do Chalitza? So Gzera Achosa Mishum Lasodida. Well, because she's in the same orbit as Sarah. Sarah and Rivka are both doing Yibum with Levi. They're in the same orbit, and therefore if you're going to do Chalitza with Sarah, so then you do Chalitza with Rivka Oichet V'ha Gabi Erva Lo Gazrinon. But 1 second, when Sarah was an Erva, when Sarah is Levi's mother-in-law, so then we just say that he could pasha do Yibum with Rivka, and we don't say, and you don't have to do anything with Sarah, right? Sarah doesn't need Yibum, doesn't need Chalitza, doesn't need nothing. So yet over here we're saying that she needs Chalitza. Shouldn't we say that they're in the same orbit and Sarah should at least need Chalitza? So shiny Erva, the Migmar Gmirela Inche V'Kala Islay. No, Erva is different than Mitzvah, right? When it comes to the Erva, so then people know, oh wow, Shimon's, Levi's got to do Yibum with his mother-in-law. Everyone's talking about it. The Jewish geographers, they love it. So because everyone's talking about it, so they know that it's that it's erva. You don't need to make extra gezeres. When it comes to Shnius Larayos, so then it's less clear, and therefore we have to make a gezerah. Friends, moving on to a new Mishnah. You ready for the new Mishnah? Good. Let's go weiter. Shlosha Achen Shnayim Nesuim Shtei Achayis Ve'echad Mufne. Givaldig. So Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Reuven's married to Sarah, Shimon's married to Rivka. Sarah and Rivka are sisters. Levi is just chilling like a villain. So again, so Shlosha Achin, you have three brothers, Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. Shnaim Nesuim Shtei Achayis. Reuven's married to Sarah, Shimon's married to Rivka, Sarah and Rivka are sisters. Ve'echad mufne. Levi is just living the good life. Meisechod mibale achayis. Reuven dies. V'asaba mufna maimer. And now Levi says, here's my chance. And he's Mekadesh Sarah. He's Mekadesh Sarah. He's Mekadesh Sarah. Sorry, he does mimer with Sarah. He does mimer with Sarah. V'achakach meis achiv hasheni. Shimon dies. And now there's Rivka. V'shamei omim ishto imo v'alazo teitze mishum achosisha. So Beishamai says, look, Levi did mimer with Sarah. They're married. Right. Mimer is how do we say? Mimer kichnusa. The fact that Levi did mimer with Sarah, they're married now. Therefore, when Shimon dies and now Rivka comes to do Yibum, you can't do Yibum. It's the sister of his wife. So therefore, right? V'alazo teitze mishum achosisha. And Rivka is pater because she's the sister of Levi's wife, Sarah. Uveis Hillel Omer, Beis Hillel says, Motzias Ishto beget uvachalitzuras. Beis Hillel says, Ma pitom. No, it's not like they're married. He's done mimer, he's been Makadisher, so he has to give her a get. But basically, that's the only difference, is that now there's Sarah and Rivka. He's not married to either one, Midoraisa. He did mimer, he gave Kesef Kiddushin to Sarah. But all that means is that in addition to doing chalitza with Sarah, he also has to give her a get. Right? Motzias ishto beget of a chalitza. So Sarah, Levi gives a get and chalitza. Ve'eshes achiv b'chalitza, and Rivka, he does chalitza. Zo he she'amru, and this is what they say, oilo al ishto v'oilo al eshes achiv. Woe is to him for his wife, and woe is to him for the wife of his brother. I.e., he lost both of them. Right? He lost both of them. He walked away with nothing. Says the Gemara, Zo hi limute mai. When we say this is the case of oilo al ishto v'oilo al eshes achiv, so to the exclusion of what? Limute hach to Yeshua to avdinun kavase ela ikra ben Gamliel ikra bi Eliezer. Okay, so that's talking about the case where you have, right, remember the case where Shimon is married to, right, Reuben and Shimon are married to two sisters, and the younger one is there's a Katana and a Gedola, and then Reuven dies, now the Gedola needs to do Yibum, but the Katana, so we kind of do Meyun, or it's Machlokas. So Rabbi Yeshua says that that the Katana has to do Meyun, and he can't do Yibum with the Gedola either, so he loses both of them. So we say that, so when it says Zohi, She'amu oilo alisha v'oilo al eshes achiv, says the Gemara, Zori l'mutimai l'mutei hach to Rabbi Yeshua. To exclude Rabbi Yeshua, the law of din kavase. We don't do like him. Right? According to Rabbi Yeshua, he can't marry either the Gedola or the Ketana. We're saying no, the halacha is not like him. Zohi shamu. In this case, we say that he lost his wife and his brother's wife. But Ella ikra ben Gamliel ikra bi Eliezer. In that other case of Memanin as a Ketana, the halacha is not like Rabbi Yeshua, it's like Rabbi Gamliel or Rabbi Eliezer. Amar Belazar, says Rabbi Belazar, Lo tema maimer leves shamai konekin in gomer. So says Rabbi Belazar that when the Mishnah says that according to Beis Shammai, what did Beis Shammai say? Ishto imo. Beis Shammai says that Sarah is considered Levi's wife because they did maimer. Says Rabbi Lazar, he clarifies, Lo tema maimer leves shamai konekin in gomer. Don't say that according to Beis Shammai, maimer is mamish a kinyan, that they're mamish married. That if they want to, where am I? That if now they want to get divorced, now, right, it's enough to just get a get. The significance of mimer, according to Beis Shammai, is just for a situation like this, that if now Shimon dies, so then there's no yibum between Levi and Rivka. That's it. But it's not that, he would only have to give her a get, that there's no longer any concept of yibum or anything like that. He would still have to do chalitza. right? So says Rabbi Elazar that when Beis Shammai says that Maimer is kichnusa, it's not as significant as it sounds. It's really just to the extent that then if Shimon dies, so then there's no Yibum with Rivka and he could stay together with Sarah. But it's not a full-fledged marriage. Amr Reb Oven, says Reb Oven, we also have the Mishnah at the beginning of the parak that says Beis Shammai Omer Yekaimu. That Beis Shammai had said at the beginning of the parak, when you have Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, Reuven is married to Sarah, Shimon is married to Rivka, Sarah and Rivka are sisters, Reuven and Shimon die, and then now Levi and Yehuda have to do Yibum with Sarah and Rivka are sisters though, so they can't. So we say, in that case, that they can't get married. And if they each do Yibum, so Beis Hillel says that they cannot remain together. Whereas Beis Shammai says that Yekaimu, they can remain together. So now says Reb Oven, Yekaimu in Chatchila lo. That if they jumped the gun and they both did Yibum, so then they could stay together according to Beis Shammai. However, they shouldn't do it Lechatchila. And if it enters your mind to say that according to Beis Shammai, Maimer is Mamish a Kinyan, is Mamish a marriage, well then, so I have a good idea. Why doesn't Levi simply do Maimer with Sarah, Yehuda will do Maimer with Rivka, and now they'll be like they're married, and that's considered okay. And then they could, and then it'll be lechatchila. What's the problem? So Elamai. So now Frek the Gemara, but 1 second. How does this, prove your point any better? What doche dechia gemura? But how does this make your case any stronger, right? So Rabbi Oven, you're coming to support Rabbi Elazar, who says that according to Beis Shammai, when it says that Maimer is kichnusa, so it only means to the extent that Rivka is nitche, that Rivka is now out of the picture. But if that's the case, so ze yaisa Maimer v'yidche, v'ze yaisa Maimer v'yidche. So let Levi do Maimer with Sarah, thereby Rivka will be out of the picture, and let Yehuda do Maimer with Rivka, thereby Sarah is out of the picture, and then that'll be lechatchila as well. So Ki'ilu, Rabbi Oven, you were trying to bring a point that if Maimer was Mamish Kones, so then let them just each do Maimer lechatchila, but that doesn't really prove your point. Your point is that to say what? That Maimer is doche, so let them each do Maimer, and the other one will be doche, nidche. So Elamai Yislach Lemaimer, what do you have to say? Maimer de Teira Dachi, de Sur lo Dachi. So you'll have to explain, well, the reason why in that case with Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, Levi can't do Maimer even just to be doche, and Yehuda can't do Maimer even just to be doche, because Maimer in a permissible kind of way will be doche Rivka, but not in an osur way when they're sisters and there's zika. So achanami, so you can argue that Maimer is mamish konya kinyan gomer theoretically. Maimer afilu man da amr Maimer konya kinyan gomer Maimer da tera konya disur lo konya. It's only konya kinyan gomer. For example, in our case where Reuven died and Levi does a Maimer with Sarah. At that point, Shimon was still alive. So you can argue that according to Beis Shammai, Maimer is mamish kinyan gomer, and it works because it was in an entirely permissible setting, right? Reuven had died. Levi did Maimer with Sarah. Shimon only had died later. As opposed to the beginning of the parak, Reuven and Shimon are both dead. Sarah and Rivka both need to do Maimer, both need to do Yibum, but they're sisters, and you can't just do Maimer at that point because you have to worry about the Zikas. Ravashi gives his take on Beis Shammai's opinion. So, where am I? Ravashi Masni Ochi, Omer Belazar says, Belazar Lotema, Maimer, Beis Shammai, Dachi Dechia, Gemura, Vitzarosa Chalitza, Nami, Lo, Baya. Don't say that according to Beis Shammai, Maimer is Doche completely, right? Don't say that according to Beis Shammai that when Levi does Maimer with Sarah, so then Rivka is just completely out of the picture. You don't even need chalitza. Ella doche umeshayir. Rather, no. It means that since Levi did Maimer with Sarah, so then he doesn't do anything with Rivka, but he still has to do Chalitza. So, says Rav Oven, so that we also have a Mishnah. Yekaimu in the Chatchila. Peshami says in our first Mishnah of the Parak, with Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, and Sarah and Rivka, Reuven and Shimon die, Levi and Yehuda need to do Yibum with Sarah and Rivka. So we say that if they jumped the gun and both did Yibum, Levi and Yehuda both did Yibum with Sarah and Rivka, so then Beishami says that they could stay together, but it's B'di'evet. And if it enters your mind that according to Beishami that Maimer is Docha D'chiyah Gemura and that Sarah doesn't have to do anything, so so let Reuven do Maimer with Sarah. No, let Levi do Maimer with Sarah, and then Rivka is completely out of the picture, and let Yehuda do Maimer with Rivka, and Sarah is completely out of the picture. So why don't we suggest that? Okay, so therefore it must be that Maimer is not completely Docha the other one. But we say over here that if Levi had already did Maimer with Sarah by the time that Shimon died, well then it says that, okay, Levi's married now to Sarah and Rivka doesn't have to do anything. Right? Rivka just leaves because she's Achos Isha. That sounds like she doesn't need any Chilitza or nothing. So Yevamos the Chazia Lechulu Chazia Lemiktzoso. Yevamos the Lo Chazia Lechulu Lo Chazia Lemiktzoso. That when it comes to our Mishnah, where at the time that Levi did Maimer with Sarah, Shimon had not yet died, and therefore, what do we say? Yevamos the Chazia Lechulu. So Levi's relationship with Sarah was a complete Yibum relationship. He could have done Yibum, he could have done Chalitza. So in that case, Chazil Miktsasa, so then it works for everything. You don't even need to do, Chalitza or anything like that when Shimon dies. But when you have, for example, the first Mishnah in the Parak, where we had Reuven, Shimon, Levi, and Yehuda, and then Reuven and Shimon die, so in that case, both Sarah and Rivka need to do Yibum, and in that case you can't just make a Maimer and then say that it'll be all good. Rabbi wants to know, according to Beis Shammai, when you do Maimer, does it count as if it's like engagement, like Erison, or is it like mamish marriage, like Nisuin? Abaye says to Rabbi L'mayilchsa, how come you're asking? What's the nafkamina? If you're saying, you're wondering, maybe if you do Maimer, so then at that point, once Levi does Maimer with Sarah, he can inherit her. And if she dies, if he's a Kohen, he can become Tamid to her. And if she makes vows, he can nullify them. So Hashta Arusa Ba'alma, Tani Reb Chiya, but one second, that can't possibly be, because even when it comes to just in a regular Arusa, says Reb Chiya, Ishto Arusa lo onein v'lo metamila, that when somebody is engaged to a woman, if he's a Kohen, and then she dies, so he wouldn't be considered in onein, that would be also to eat kodshim, v'lo metamila, it cannot become tamid to her, v'chein hilo onenes v'lo metamis lo, and similarly, she would not have a status of onein and be usher to eat kachim at any point, and she cannot become tamid to him. Says Rashi, technically speaking, right, a bas kohen can become tamid to anybody. So the issur against becoming tamid doesn't apply to a bas kohen. So Rashi says, okay, maybe it's talking about the shalosh regalim, where in general we don't want to become tamid, fine, but she wouldn't become tamid to him. Meisa eno yarsha, if she dies, if his fiance dies, so then he does not inherit her. Meishu gova ksubasa. If he dies, then she collects her ksuba. Avad ba maimer mibaya. So if in those cases he doesn't inherit her and he doesn't, what else did we say? That doesn't become tamid to her. So certainly maimer, which is only midarabanan, right? Erison at least is midaraisa. Maimer, which is only midarabanan, certainly those things would not apply. Velin misir lechupa. Maybe you're talking about, do you need to have a chuppah? So ve'el inyan mesir lechupa mai. So what is it? So do we say nisuin oseh v'lo bayim mesir lechupa? So do we say that mimer is considered like nisuin, and therefore no, once it's the mimer is the nisuin, you don't need a chuppah anymore. Or dilma erisin also bayim mesir lechupa. Or maybe it's erisin. Maybe mimer is just like erisin, and still you would need to have a chuppah, but Hashta lo avid ba mimer ksiv Yevamo yavayaleh bal korcha avid ba mimer mibaya. But 1 second, even if he wouldn't have done mimer, right? Of course, as we've learned, if the brother would do yibum with the widow against her will, it would still count as yibum. So and you wouldn't need a chuppah or anything. They would be considered married at that point. So even without mimer, you don't need a chuppah. So then memele with mimer, you wouldn't necessarily need a chuppah in that respect. So shani omer, because I say kol osa mimer biyevimto. Where am I? Mibaiso omerle. So Rabba responds, shani omer, I'll say kol osa mimer biyevimto parcha b'menu zikas yivam v'cholol of zikas erisin. So Rabbi says, no, that's exactly what we're asking, right? We're asking if you do mimer, do you still need a chuppah? Maybe you'll say, but when he hasn't done mimer, he doesn't need a chuppah. Now that he's done mimer, why should he need a chuppah? Well, so says Rabbi, I may have thought that when he does mimer, right? That when somebody does mimer with the Yevamo, parcha mimenu zikas yivamin. Well, then the standard zika of yibum goes away. Zikas erisin, and now the zika of erisin kicks in, and maybe Yutaka now at this point would need chuppah. So what do we say? Is mimer considered like nisuin, or is mimer considered like erisin? Tashma coming here. Shemeres yavam bein yavam echad bein shnei yavamin. So if you have Reuven's married to Sarah, and then Reuven dies. So bein echad bein yavam echad bein shnei yavamin. So whether there's one brother, whether there's two brothers, whether there's just Shimon, whether there's Shimon and Levi, Rabbi Eliezer Omer Yafer. Rabbi Eliezer says that they could still do Hafaras Nedarim. Rabbi Yeshua Omer le'echad v'lo l'shnayim. Rabbi Yeshua says that if there was only Shimon, so then Shimon can nullify her vows. But v'lo l'shnayim. But if there are two brothers, if it's Shimon and Levi, so then they can't nullify the vows anymore, because there's not like a clear zika there, because there's two brothers. So who's going to nullify the vows? Rabbi Akiva Omer lo le'echad v'lo l'shnayim. Rabbi Akiva says no, either way. Either when Reuven dies, and now that whether there's only Shimon, whether there's Shimon and Levi, they cannot yet be mefer nedarim. Okay. We ask. Bishlam Rabbi Akiva, I understand Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Savar ein zika afilu l'chad. Rabbi Akiva says, look, there's no zika even for one brother. There's no zika, and therefore he cannot be made for the nedarim. Rabbi Yeshua l'chad yesh zika l'trei ein zika. I understand Rabbi Yeshua. You could say, okay, for one brother there's zika, for two brothers there's no zika. Ella, Rabbi Eliezer nihinami diksavi yesh zika. So I understand that Rabbi Eliezer holds that there is zika, whether for one brother or for two brothers. But if so I understand if there's only one brother, so he can be made for the nedarim. But if there are two brothers, then why is it that either one can annul the vows, and they should have to annul them together? Bami says, because it's talking about where one of them did mimer, Beis Shammai and it's Beis Shammai damer mimer kona kinyan gomer, and it's like Beis Shammai who says that mimer is kona a kinyan gomer, and that's why he's able to do hafaras nedarim. So now says the Gemara, Yomar bishlam nisuin osa. So I understand if mimer does nisuin, so mishumachi mefer. That's why the brother who did mimer can be made for nedarim, because it's like they're married. But if you say that mimer is just like erisin, how could that brother be made for the nedarim? That when you have a naira me'orasa that's engaged. So both her father together with her fiance are made for the Nedarim, not him alone. So Nachman Bar Yitzchak says, well, when it says that he can be made for the Nedarim, it means together with her father. Okay, but not on his own. Okay, fine. Whether be that said the Amr Maimer Leveshamei, Ulu Rabbalaz the Amr Maimer Leveshamei, Eino Kone El Lidchos L'Tzor Bavad, Amai Mefer B'Shutfis. But what about according to Rabbalazar, who had said that Maimer only works in order to, so that if Shimon dies, there's no Yibum with Rivka, but that's about it. So then why is the brother who does Maimer, why is he able to do Hafaras Nedarim? So Amalach Rabbalazar, Eimar, the Amri Ono, Enokone El Lidchos L'Tzor Bavad, Tlosagi La Begito. So I'll say that, yeah, when it says that Maimer works just so that Rivka doesn't need to do Yibum, Elaboy Nami Chalitza. But she'll need also Chalitza, right? So says Rabbi Lazar, look, I'm saying that when I say that Maimer works between Levi and Sarah, just so that Rivka doesn't do Yibum when Shimon dies, but in other ways, they're not considered, right? Levi and Sarah are not considered married. That's just to say that if they get divorced, in addition to the get, you'll also need Chalitza. But La'afar Nidareya Mi Aminun. But are we taught, did anybody say anything about Hafaras Nedarim? No, you could still nullify the vows. Viba Yisema, if you want, I will say, Amalach Rabbalazar would say, Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak Menicha is any better for Rav Nachman Bar Yitzchak? Mikatani Yaferu, Yafer Katani. It doesn't say Yaferu, plural, it says Yafer, singular. Elo Achav Ma'iskin, what are we talking about here? Sha'amdu Bedin, Ufaskul Amazonus Mishalo. That this guy was being a humongous nudnik. Levi was being a big nudnik over here, or Shimon, whoever it is, the Yavam, was being a big nudnik, and he was refusing to either do Yibum or Chalitza, and she was basically stuck. And the Bezdin says, well, then you have to support her and pay for her, you have to support her with food and money and stuff. That now that he is responsible to support her and take responsibility for her, so then he has the ability to be made for her nedarim, to annul her vows, and therefore there's a concept of that when this wife whose husband is able to nullify her vows makes a neder, she's doing it with the knowledge that her husband can nullify those vows, and therefore in this particular case where this fellow is responsible to support this woman, so then he can be made for those nedarim. Friends, I gotta run. Peace out.